Hey there, welcome to Pickled Parables. This podcast is presented by Parable Ministries as a Bible teaching resource. Thank you for joining us. Pickled Parables is a podcast about taking in and living out the Bible. Here we will study, contemplate, and testify to the Bible's incredible teachings and how it leads us to live better lives. To stay up to date with all things Parable, follow us on Instagram at parable_ministries and visit our website at parableministries.com. We hope today's message finds you well.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Pickled Parables. I'm your host, Hunter Hoover, and I'm joined with my co-host, Jesse Turkington. Jesse, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Glad to be here.
Yeah, he is wed. He is a married man. This will be. It might not be your. I don't know if you have a 1st, 2nd, 3rd John that comes out in the interim between now and when this episode comes out, but if not, this is definitely your first record since getting married. So that's awesome, dude. Congrats.
Thank you.
And
Very fun.
Yeah, I'm excited for you guys. It's gonna be great. Well, we are going to be looking at another one of our God and sinners this week, and Jesse is actually going to be bringing the sinner this time. So, Jesse, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you to intro and get us into the sinner.
Okay. Sure. Today I'm bringing the story of Balaam. And, you know, Hunter, I haven't heard this story since I was a kid in Sunday school. Did you get this story in Sunday school?
I got a safe version.
We all did.
I got a version with, it very much highlighted the Narnia-esque donkey was the version that I got. But I didn't get as much of the political. Anyway, we're going to get into it. But yes, with an asterisk.
I haven't heard this story really at all as an adult. I don't know if this is something that's reserved for kids. It has some weird things in it. That could make a sermon kind of hard. You mentioned it. It has a talking donkey in it. And it ends very abruptly. It kind of makes things uncomfortable the way it ends. It's just genuinely a weird story.
Yeah, it is.
And there's a high bar to it because it's expecting the reader to know what stories and what events have come before it because it uses direct quotes from those stories, and it even uses certain elements from previous narratives, which seem to influence the story as it goes on. So let's as we get into it, this is just one of those stories that as you read through it, you're cheering for the protagonist because it seems like he's doing everything right. But when you get to the end of the story, one detail is shared that changes the whole way that we view the protagonist. And so it prompts us to look back at the story with a new perspective and ask questions like, what was his motive with this one? Or what really was going on here? And it just brings a new light to the story. So what I'll do, I'll present the story, and then we'll look back at a few of those key details and see if it paints any type of different picture. Awesome. So we'll jump in Numbers chapter 22, verse 1. I'll just start it here. Then the people of Israel traveled to the plains of Moab and camped east of the Jordan River across from Jericho. Balak, son of Zippor, the Moabite king, had seen everything the Israelites did to the Amorites. And when the people of Moab saw how many Israelites there were, they were terrified. The king of Moab said to the elders of Midian, a different kingdom, "This mob will devour everything in sight, like an ox devours grass in the field." So Balak, king of Moab, sent messengers to call Balaam, son of Beor, who was living in his native land of Pethor, near the Euphrates River. His message said this: "Look, a vast horde of people has arrived from Egypt. They cover the face of the earth, and they're threatening me. Please come and curse these people for me, because they are too powerful for me. Then perhaps I will be able to conquer them and drive them from the land. I know that blessings fall on any people you bless, and curses fall on people you curse." Balak's messengers, who were elders of Moab and Midian, set out with money to pay Balaam to place a curse upon Israel. They went to Balaam and delivered Balak's message to him. "Stay here overnight," Balaam said. "In the morning, I will tell you whatever the Lord directs me to say." And I'll note here, this is the all capitalized, what's that called? Tetragrammaton, the consonant version name of the Lord. So he's talking about the God of Jacob. "I will tell you whatever the Lord directs me to say." So the officials from Moab stayed there with Balaam. That night, God came to Balaam and asked him, "Who are these men visiting you?" Balaam said to God, "Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent me this message. Look, a vast horde of people has arrived from Egypt, and they cover the face of the earth. Come and curse these people for me. Then perhaps I will be able to stand up to them and drive them from the land." But God told Balaam, "Do not go with them. You are not to curse these people, for they have been blessed." The next morning, Balaam got up and told Balak's officials, "Go home. The Lord will not let me go with you." So the Moabite officials returned to King Balak and reported, "Balaam refused to come with us." Then Balak tried again. This time he sent a larger number of even more distinguished officials than those he had sent the first time. They went to Balaam and delivered this message to him. "This is what Balak, son of Zippor, says. Please, don't let anything stop you from coming to help me. I will pay you very well and do whatever you tell me. Just come and curse these people for me." But Balaam responded to Balak's messengers, "Even if Balak were to give me his palace filled with silver and gold, I would be powerless to do anything against the will of the Lord my God. But stay here one more night, and I will see if the Lord has anything else to say to me." That night the Lord came to Balaam and told him, "Since these men have come for you, get up and go with them, but only do what I tell you to do." So the next morning, Balaam got up, saddled his donkey, and started off with the Moabite officials. But God was angry that Balaam was going, so he sent the angel of the Lord to stand in the road to block his way. As Balaam and his 2 servants were riding along, Balaam's donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand. The donkey bolted off the road into a field, but Balaam beat it and turned it back onto the road. Then the angel of the Lord stood at a place where the road narrowed between 2 vineyard walls. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it tried to squeeze by and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall. So Balaam beat the donkey again. Then the angel of the Lord moved farther down the road and stood in a place too narrow for the donkey to get by at all. This time, when the donkey saw the angel, it lay down under Balaam. In a fit of rage, Balaam beat the animal again with his staff. Then the Lord gave the donkey the ability to speak. "What have I done to you that deserves your beating me 3 times?" it asked Balaam. "You have made me look like a fool," Balaam shouted. "If I had a sword with me, I would kill you." "But I am the same donkey you have ridden all your life," the donkey answered. "Have I ever done anything like this before?" "No," Balaam admitted. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the roadway with a drawn sword in his hand. Balaam bowed his head and fell face down on the ground before him. "Why did you beat your donkey those 3 times?" the angel of the Lord demanded. "Look, I have come to block your way because you are stubbornly resisting me. 3 times the donkey saw me and shied away. Otherwise, I would certainly have killed you by now and spared the donkey." Then Balaam confessed to the angel of the Lord, "I have sinned. I didn't realize you were standing in the road to block my way. I will return home if you are against my going." But the angel of the Lord told Balaam, "Go with these men, but say only what I tell you to say." So Balaam went on with Balak's officials. When King Balak heard that Balaam was on the way, He went out to meet him at a Moabite town on the Arnon River at the farthest border of his land. "Didn't I send an urgent invitation? Why didn't you come right away?" Balak asked Balaam. "Didn't you believe me when I said I would reward you richly?" Balaam replied, "Look, now I have come, but I have no power to say whatever I want. I will speak only the message that God puts in my mouth." Then Balaam accompanied Balak to Kiriath Hazorath, where the king sacrificed cattle and sheep. He sent portions of the meat to Balaam and the officials who were with him. The next morning, Balak took Balaam up to Bamoth Baal. From there, he could see some of the people of Israel spread out below him. Then Balaam said to King Balak, "Build me 7 altars here, and prepare 7 young bulls and 7 rams for me to sacrifice." Balak followed his instructions, and the 2 of them sacrificed a young bull and a ram on each altar. Then Balaam said to Balak, "Stand here by your burnt offerings, and I will go see if the Lord will respond to me. Then I will tell you whatever he reveals to me." So Balaam went alone to the top of a bare hill, and God met him there. Balaam said to him, "I have prepared 7 altars, and have sacrificed a young bull and a ram on each altar." The Lord gave Balaam a message for King Balak. Then he said, "Go back to Balak and give him my message." So Balaam returned and found the king standing beside his burnt offerings with all the officials of Moab. This is the message Balaam delivered. "Balak summoned me to come from Aram. The king of Moab brought me from the eastern hills. 'Come,' he said, 'curse Jacob for me. Come and announce Israel's doom.' But how can I curse those whom God has not cursed? How can I condemn those whom the Lord has not condemned? I see them from the cliff tops. I watch them from the hills. I see a people who live by themselves, set apart from other nations. Who can count Jacob's descendants, as numerous as dust? Who can count even a fourth of Israel's people? Let me die like the righteous. Let my life end like theirs." Then King Balak demanded of Balaam, "What have you done to me? I brought you to curse my enemies. Instead, you have blessed them." But Balaam replied, "I will speak only the message that the Lord puts in my mouth." Then King Balak told him, "Come with me to another place. There you will see another part of the nation of Israel, but not all of them. Curse at least that many." So Balak took Balaam to the plateau of Zophim on Pisgah Peak. He built 7 altars there and offered a young bull and a ram on each altar. Then Balaam said to the king, "Stand here by your burnt offerings while I go over there and meet with the Lord." And the Lord met Balaam and gave him a message. Then he said, "Go back to Balak and give him my message." So Balaam returned and found the king standing beside his burnt offerings with all the officials of Moab. "What did the Lord say?" Balak asked eagerly. This was the message Balaam delivered. "Rise up, Balak, and listen. Hear me, O son of Zippor. God is not a man, so he does not lie. He is not human, so he does not change his mind. Has he ever spoken and failed to act? Has he ever promised and not carried it through? Listen, I received a command to bless. God has blessed, and I cannot reverse it. No misfortune is in his plan for Jacob. No trouble is in store for Israel. For the Lord their God is with them. He has been proclaimed their king. God brought them out of Egypt. For them he is as strong as a wild ox. No curse can touch Jacob. No magic has any power against Israel. For now it will be said of Jacob, what wonders God has done for Israel. These people rise up like a lioness, like a majestic lion rousing itself. They refuse to rest until they have feasted on prey, drinking the blood of the slaughtered." Then Balak said to Balaam, "Fine, but if you won't curse them, at least don't bless them." But Balaam replied to Balak, "Didn't I tell you that I can only do what the Lord tells me?" Then King Balak said to Balaam, "Come, I will take you to one more place. Perhaps it will please God to let you curse them from there." So Balak took Balaam to the top of Mount Peor, overlooking the wasteland. Balaam again told Balak, "Build me 7 altars and prepare 7 young bulls and 7 rams for me to sacrifice." So Balak did as Balaam ordered and offered a young bull and a ram on each altar. By now, Balaam realized that the Lord was determined to bless Israel, so he did not resort to divination as before. Instead, he turned and looked out towards the wilderness, where he saw the people of Israel camped tribe by tribe. Then the Spirit of God came upon him, and this is the message he delivered. This is the message of Balaam, son of Beor, the message of the man whose eyes see clearly. The message of the one who hears the words of God, who sees a vision from the Almighty, who bows down with eyes wide open. How beautiful are your tents, O Jacob! How lovely are your homes, O Israel! They spread before me like palm groves, like gardens by the riverside, Garden of Eden. They are tall trees planted by the Lord, like cedars beside the waters. Water will flow from their buckets. Their offspring have all that they need. Their king will be greater than Agag. Their kingdom will be exalted. God brought them out of Egypt. For them he is as strong as a wild ox. He devours all the nations that oppose him, breaking their bones in pieces, shooting them with arrows. Like a lion, Israel crouches and lies down. Like a lioness, who dares to arouse her? Blessed is everyone who blesses you, O Israel, and cursed is everyone who curses you. That's pretty much a straight quote from Genesis, chapter 12. King Balak flew into a rage against Balaam. He angrily clapped his hands and shouted, "I called you to curse my enemies. Instead, you have blessed them 3 times. Now get out of here. Go home. I promise to reward you richly, but the Lord has kept you from my reward." Balaam told Balak, "Don't you remember what I told your messengers? I said, even if Balak were to give me his palace, filled with silver and gold, I would be powerless to do anything against the will of God. I told you that I could say only what the Lord says. Now I am returning to my own people, but first, let me tell you what the Israelites will do to your people in the future." This is the message Balaam delivered. This is the message of Balaam, son of Beor, the message of the man whose eyes see clearly, the message of one who hears the words of God, who has knowledge from the Most High, who sees a vision from the Almighty, who bows down with eyes wide open. I see him, but not here and now. I perceive him, but far in the distant future. A star will rise from Jacob. A scepter will emerge from Israel. It will crush the heads of Moab's people, cracking the skulls of the people of Sheth. Edom will be taken over, and Seir, its enemy, will be conquered, while Israel marches on in triumph. A ruler will rise in Jacob who will destroy the survivors of Ur. Then Balaam looked over towards the people of Amalek and delivered this message. Amalek was the greatest of nations, but its destiny is destruction. Then he looked over towards the Kenites, and he delivered this message. Your home is secure. Your nest is set in the rocks, but the Kenites will be destroyed when Assyria takes you captive. Balaam concluded his messages by saying, Alas, who can survive unless God has willed it? Ships will come from the coast of Cyprus. They will oppress Assyria and afflict Eber, but they too will be utterly destroyed. Then Balaam left and returned home, and Balak also went on his way. This is where the bulk of Balaam's story ends. Before we move on, Hunter, tell me, what's your initial impression of Balaam? He seems like he's a prophet of God or something.
Yeah, I've got two things. First of all, before I share the second, if this is a shameless plug, if you enjoyed what you just heard, Jesse reading, which I did, and I was actually, it was nice because I did actually what I do. You go listen to My Dusty Bible. Jesse is reading through the Bible, and he's reading through it in reverse. And one day he will read the section of scripture that he just read in its entirety in the book of Numbers. But if you enjoyed what you just heard, go check out My Dusty Bible. Shameless plug there at the beginning. The second thing, Jesse, is as you were reading, I was trying to take down some notes. I was also rigorously opening tabs. So I have a tab farm up here now. And I realized something is I have heard two now interpretations, as you read, I have heard two different interpretations of the person of Balaam. And I have heard an argument made that Balaam, at the beginning you talked about who's the protagonist.
Yeah.
And I wrote down, well, who's the protagonist? Because I have often heard this story as an example of how, well, look at this prophet, who is part of Israel's enemies, sort of, but he's hearing from God, and he seemingly is, I can only speak what God wants me to speak. And meanwhile, Israel is up to no good, we find out in chapter 25. But, and I've heard that, and I have heard this as kind of a almost defensive Balaam, saying, hey, even God is even working through Israel's enemies to accomplish his purposes. And even this non-Israelite prophet is on board with this stuff, even though Israel at times doesn't seem to be. And there's truth in that. But what I realize as you are reading and as I'm just kind of slowing down and refocusing on this is Balaam's just a little bit more crooked than that. And there's an answer to a puzzle here where you go, well, why did the Israelites get up to such no good in chapter 25? And it has just now dawned on me, and I think that's where we're going to arrive at here. So, but yeah, a lot of things were bouncing out at me. Talking, first of all, big thing, I just want to put the tiger on the table here. If your donkey starts talking, my initial response is more like, wait a minute, like a talking donkey. But yeah, the text seems to take the talking donkey for granted, which is interesting in its own right. But I don't know if that's what you were thinking I would.
Yeah, no, there's several details in this story that are just weird. And I put together a short list, and I'll just present them here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. I just have 4 of them.
Perfect.
God said that Balaam could go with the Moabites at the very beginning of the story, but then he tries to kill him on the way. That's kind of weird to me, to give someone permission to go do something and then try to kill them when they do it. That seems strange to me. Mm-hmm. Does that seem strange to you at all?
It does. I do have, I don't know if it's an explanation or like a piece to try to help understand it, but
okay.
Because yes, it almost seems arbitrary. And my first thought when I is is this one of those tests? Do you know what I mean? Where God issues the test to those of faith, and it's like, are you gonna trust me and do the thing that I have said, or are you going to rely on your own and look no further than most of the book of Genesis, for examples? Yeah. I'm not confident that's what's going on here. Okay. I think Balaam's a sucker for money.
Yeah.
Truly. And I think there is this idea of hey, you can go with them, but see, this is where I almost want the book chapter verse where it's and this is what Balaam was up to. This is his scheme, because I have a gut feeling about, I think Balaam plays for one team, and that's Team Balaam. And he's like, sure, you can pay me, but I have to tell what God tells me. I have to, which is interesting to me. Like, that's the part where I'm like, so you got to tell him what God tells you, but dude, you play fast and loose with like the things God directs you toward. But man, seems to give direct oracles from God.
So it seems, Hunter, you have just this concern about Balaam's character in general. Is that kind of the vibe you got?
I have some concern. Yes, I have some concern for his character. And my concern is met, one, because I like probably many black and white thinkers, like Bible stories where the bad guy doesn't get to hear from God and isn't talking to God so much, and seems to even be like God is not on his side. And at many parts of this story, it seems as if Balaam, I don't know if I wouldn't say he has a relationship with the God of Israel, but he hears from him and he has conversations with him. Much like, I mean, I don't know if at this point in the story, if many characters do that other than Moses. And so it's like, okay, like, well, this guy is maybe a different sort of pedigree of prophet. And I tend to believe that he actually is a real prophet.
Okay. Let me give the rest of these little details and just see where we end up real quick here. So he goes with the Moabites, but God tries to kill him after giving him permission. That's weird. There's a talking donkey, and Balaam gets into an argument with this donkey, and he loses that argument with the donkey.
The donkey wins.
Kind of. It's humorous, but strange, but weird. There's a mention of magic in a couple places. In one of Balaam's blessings, chapter 23, verse 23, he says, "No curse can touch Jacob. No magic has any power against Israel." Then later, right after he said this, we find out that Balaam has been using magic this whole time to talk with God. It says, by now Balaam realized that the Lord was determined to bless Israel, so he did not resort to divination as before.
Yeah,
chapter 24, verse 1.
And it seems to have worked.
Yeah, it does.
That's the part where we get into like, okay, you know, he divined and seems to have heard from God. Either that or he got really lucky on a lot of what he said.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, despite practicing magic, Balaam refers to God at one point as the Lord my God, chapter 22, verse 18. He clearly missed the little thing about God hating magic and having clear instructions about staying away from magical practices. But whatever. So that's just a short list of weird details. There's more. There's a lot more. But those are the big ones that a reader could catch on their first read through.
Yes.
So let me end Balaam's story. He has a little more. Right after Balaam leaves King Balak, we find a narrative of Israel in chapter 25 being tempted and quote unquote seduced into sexual relations with Moabite women, and they are then led into worshiping Baal or Baal. It's hard for everyone. And offering sacrifices to this god. This brings about a great anger and a plague from God, from the God of Jacob. It's eventually, it gets dealt with, it gets nipped in the bud, and the story continues in a different direction for about 5 chapters. Eventually, we find Israel attacking Midian, one of the 2 kingdoms that tried to hire Balaam. This is chapter 31. Let me get there quickly. And it's just a couple verses here. Starting verse 31, verse 7. They attacked Midian as the Lord had commanded Moses, and they killed all the men. All 5 of the Midianite kings, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, died in the battle. They also killed Balaam, son of Beor, with the sword. And the reason that we find Balaam is killed is found in verse 16. These are the very ones who followed Balaam's advice and caused the people of Israel to rebel against the Lord at Mount Peor. They are the ones who caused the plague to strike the Lord's people. This verse is the end of Balaam's story. That's it. He dies. Even though it's not mentioned in the story of Balaam and Balak, Balaam at some point told Balak that, hey, these curses aren't going to work. When I try to appease their God so that he'll let me curse them, nothing but blessings come out of my mouth. But if you seduce them into worshiping your gods, their God will curse them himself. Yeah. And this one detail changes the whole story that we just read. Huh. Balaam, acting as a mediator between the kings of Moab and Midian and the spiritual realm, was trying this whole time to persuade the God of Jacob to let him curse the Israelite people. And when Balaam realized that God wouldn't allow a curse against his people, Balaam gave advice to Balak on how to coax God into cursing his own people. If you can convince the Israelites to worship your God, their God will become jealous and curse them for leaving him. Balaam was a medium, and apparently a very effective one. He was paid by 2 kingdoms to curse an entire people group, but he had to appease their spiritual protector so that he could curse the people without divine protection. But whenever he tried, nothing but blessings came out of his mouth. Mm-hmm. Wow, there's a lot in this story that's being tied back to previous stories in the Torah. One of the biggest themes is God's promise to Abraham. I really exemplified with the part of, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. And the story itself it's written like a satire. We have this powerful medium that kings are begging to employ, who is outmatched by his donkey being able to see more of the spiritual realm than he can. And each time he tries to convince God to let him curse Israel, God says no, and instead prompts him to bless them. It's just a humor. That's a funny situation.
Jesse, it's not the same character, but the character of Loki, and I mean both like modern day vanilla Loki and also the Loki of like Norse mythology it like pops into my brain. And I say that because there is this thing that is captured in that character that I think is actually fascinating, and I think it's true for Balaam in that he knows that he cannot do something in the case of the Bible, he cannot do something to subvert God. Like, he, as a practicing medium, prophet, if you will, quote unquote, he knows that if all he could lie, of course, like that, but I think he believes in it and is convinced in his abilities to the point where he's like, no. Like, this is what I'm hearing. And so it connects with this like mischievous character in that one of the things that especially the character of Loki does is he says, okay, if I can't get what I want, if I can't get the oracle that I seek, I'm going to create my own. And I'm going to fabricate the outcome that I desire. Primarily, so that way the king will pay him more money for finally cursing the people of Israel. Which is, it's also like, get a new prophet that, like, you know, and good on this guy from Midian that's like, yeah, keep him around. You know, he bats 1,000. So I can't remember. It might be Judges or it might even be later. But there is a story of a king. Oh, it's in Kings where he has the prophet and the prophet doesn't give a favorable word. Like, he pretty much pronounces God's judgment on him, and he's like, throw him in jail, get me another one. I'm baffled that the king of Midian doesn't do that with Balaam. He's like, I was very clear. I hired you to curse them.
Yeah.
Curse them. And he's like, I can't. Their God has blessed them. And just the fact that Balaam also seems to have these principles as a prophet to speak. I mean, and this is, I'm gonna kind of tip my hand here, Jesse. I think his prophecies, oracles, what have you, I think they are legit. This is and I say that because, like you said, he is connecting things almost directly back to the story of Genesis, specifically with God's promises to Abram and Isaac and Jacob. He talks about like God's gonna free you from Egypt. That already happened. So like, what's he talking about there? And then he starts talking about this star and this scepter, and the head of Moab's going to be crushed. And I don't know if you plan on talking about that language, but it's like, wait. Did Balaam just either accidentally or on purpose give, did he just drag Genesis 3 kicking and screaming over here? But again, I think he's in it for the money. I think he talked this king into seducing the Israelite people. I know he did. I mean, the Bible tells me so, and it worked. I mean, mission half accomplished, except for we see some people of zeal, and we see God's forgiveness on display rather than his outright cursing of the people. But they do receive I will say harsh discipline is the best way I can word that. But
Hunter, the way he ends, the way his story ends, he's killed in an act of judgment, and it's just fascinating to me how this whole time he's tried to curse Israel, but he couldn't. He was blessing them, and if you really get into the grainier, the individual things, there's like 7 blessings in each of the blessings. It gets into the whole 7 sacrifices and stuff. But he eventually, we're not told this in the narrative between him and Balak. It comes 5 chapters later, I think, to give room for the humor to marinate. And then we find out that he found a way around God's protection so that God himself would curse them. But he forgot the key detail that he said himself. May those who bless you be blessed, and may those who curse you be cursed. And he ends up being cursed in this judgment action of death. It's just the whole point. He was trying to do this, and
I
flips
think
it on his head.
I think, yes, he in that regard, he is successful. He kind of got it worked. But I think what's interesting is I think he realized, because towards the end of that sets of oracles, he begins to have some not so long lasting things to say about Israel's enemies. And I think even then, I think he's hoping, maybe I can turn this around for all these people too. Maybe I can truly get God mad enough at his own people that, I can't remember all the nations. I had to go back a couple chapters, but it's like the Amalekites and the Kenites and all of these ites that he pretty much says, you're going to be destroyed. The Moabites are going to be destroyed. He goes through it. And I think there's also some let's see what I can do as an agent in this world to influence a spiritual matter to hopefully produce an outcome wherein none of this proves true. And it's interesting, and I don't think he could succeed. And what I mean by that is, yes, we have the person of Phineas who is heck no, and he goes in and says reverse. But I'm convinced even if we didn't have a Phineas stand up and do something like that, yes, God is not going to ignore the sin of his people. Like there's going to be a disciplinary action. But we've seen this play out time and time again in Israel's story before this. Even to the point, like when they're worshiping the golden calf, like God's ready to get rid of all of them. Yeah. And Moses is like, whoa, hold up. And then later on, we even see Aaron kind of get it a little bit, and he stands up before the people, and it's like, wait. And there is this other side where, yes, Balaam is able as a human on this earth to play fast and loose with the things of evil to try to produce a negative outcome. There is this other side where it's like we do see these human characters in this world who can choose, like the sin's crouching at the door and its desire is for you, and you can choose to rule over it if I will. And they choose to rule over it in the moment. And that seems to be the thing that is like God is, interacts with that and works with it. I think Balaam underestimated God's forgiveness. And I think Balaam underestimated the faithfulness and the zeal of some of God's people. Had he got them all, maybe it would have worked. But he, not all were so taken by these ladies. And what's interesting is even after they smite the people, they take a bunch of women. They were not supposed to do that. But no. So, it's like, we're planting a little nugget here. And I think there's this thing of like Balaam. How often do we want to try to have a foot in both camps? You know what I mean? Like I want to commune with God, but I also want to like play the game of the world a little bit and see if I can. Which one's going to give me the outcome that I want? I think that's kind of what Balaam's doing a little bit, and also padding his pockets on the way. That's my read. And I think the donkey is. There is an interesting theological question on the donkey. If the angel is there, presumably to kill Balaam, because that's kind of like what the text leads us to believe, is the donkey able, like, is this hoodoo mama voodoo that's making the donkey talk? And is this like an evil spirit allowing the donkey to talk, or is this God? You know what I'm saying? Like, I would have to go back and peek at the exact wording of that, but I if I remember correct, it's left kind of ambiguous as to why this donkey can talk. Oh, I want to peek at that.
At least in the NLT version, it says that God gave this donkey the ability to talk.
So God, yeah, okay, so I see that
Verse
now.
28, chapter 22.
So then, with that in mind, my question is, why put the angel there? Like, it's like, okay, stage the angel, stage left. And now, donkey, go, warn him of the angel. And it's almost as if, I really think God is trying to get Balaam to roll it back now. Like, now's the time. You've seen it. Your donkey woke you up. You've seen the angel. He's ready to blast you. And I'm giving you one last chance, buddy, to chill out and stop this thing. And he doesn't. He goes through with it, and in time, he does get his comeuppance. But it's just a fascinating, like, what an amazing way to get Balaam's attention. And for me, I think he needed a talking donkey and a crazy angel with a wild sword thing because he was so entrenched in some of this stuff. Like,
yeah. And I want to take the conversation in that that trench for a little bit. The magical. the magical aspect. Mm-hmm. It is very interesting to me we have this non-Israelite man who kings come to, and they say, let me get there, chapter 22, I know that blessings fall on any people you bless, and curses fall on all you curse. Chapter 22. That's like the introduction to Balaam. We see he's this powerful medium or mediator that these kings are coming to for him to mediate between the kings and the spiritual world so that a curse can take place. And it's all the things that lead up to this. We find out like he's been talking to God through divination. He's been summoning God, which is a wild, wild thing to me, is that he summoned God to talk with him. He's supposed to see, like in a bunch of his oracles, he talks about how he's the man who sees clearly and all these things, but yet he couldn't see the angel trying to kill him. There's all this tension throughout this story of this magical man he's steeped in this stuff, trying to appease a god so that he's allowed to curse the God's people. That's as I understand it, standard practice is that when there's a protection over someone, in a spiritual sense, when you're trying to do some sort of curse or blessing, you have to appease them to let you do your thing in some way. So this whole scenario, he's trying to appease, petition, get around, but it's something that's being shown in this story is the absolute strength of God's promise that I will bless them. I will not let curse come upon them. And he even says it himself, like, no curse can come to the people of Jacob. No magic can touch them because of God's protection. And I think that's a key theme that's pointed at in this story.
Jesse, I want to I'm going to put on my anti-dispensationalist cap here for a moment, if I will.
Please do.
I am convinced, and I don't use numbers 22 through 31 as why I believe this. I believe this based on what I read in the New Testament about Jesus, especially in the early church in Acts, and the influence that Jesus had over the enemy, and specifically these negative spiritual forces. But I'm convinced that like that idea that God's people cannot, like there is something about being God's people that he is not going to allow this thing to interact with them or touch them. I'm not one of those where like every promise of Israel is a promise for me and Jesus, guys. But I do believe that, like, as Christians filled with the Holy Spirit, that this is an idea that applies to us. That evil spirits, what have you, like, they seem to flee in the face of God, especially in the New Testament. And
Colossians, yeah. You put him to open shame.
Yeah. And that idea, like seeing that almost play out here with Balaam's story so far back is like, it's a good reminder to take my now dispensational hat off for the rest of it. Is I think there's some good to be reminded as Christians in that, like, this is a thing that God has cared about and has stood by for some time. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
I wanted to...
I've been reading, you just brought up for me, I've been reading a book, it's a missionology book about explaining the gospel to different cultures. I've read it before, but I'm doing some preparatory work for our secret project that I'm working on. And I'm rereading it because I want to use elements from it. It's called the 3D Gospel. And I really enjoy it because it looks at it's generalizing, but three aspects in culture and how the gospel affects each aspect. There's the guilty and innocent culture that's really prominent in the West. There's the shame and honor shame culture that's kind of East. And then there's power and I forget what he uses for the other word, but power and weakness essentially. Where and that theme, which is what you just touched on, plays a big role for some people. Where Jesus died for your sins and paid the price for your sins doesn't mean a lot to someone who feels like they have to do these certain rituals so that they have power over the elemental spirits. And that's a real thing still today. People still have to do these practices. They have to put certain things and objects up in their homes to keep things out. It's still a thing that they have to encounter or deal with. And because of the gospel, one of the aspects of redemption and salvation we experience is the power of Christ protecting us from the elemental spirits, like it's talked about in Colossians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's just you brought that up for me in my mind, and that fits.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that I find we've visited the magic a few times here on Pickled Parables recently. I feel like over the course of the last 4 or 5 months, you and I have had some conversation about magic, even in mentioning it. And for me, like when I hear this story, and like I said, I just kind of sat here and ate my pig in a blanket and let you reading it wash over me. And something that stood out to me again was like, it's easy to get to Numbers 31 and be like, God, man, Israel, really? Come on, like, sort yourself out. We're almost to the end of Numbers, and you're still doing this stuff. But then to be reminded, like, Balaam's playing a shell game over here in the background. He is over here, and I think he's like. And the other thing, and this is one of those that goes into, how did we get this Bible? And I don't want to derail this conversation, but like, how do we know what Balaam said?
Yeah.
Like, he's over in Moab. I think I have a theory, but it's not important for now. I think Ruth and the Moabitess and their time with the Moabite people was important to getting that information. But that's beside the point. But it's like, he gives. I'm going to read it again, Jesse. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm stuck on this oracle because, like, as you were reading it, I'm going, dude, this is. I mean, it's not the exact same language. It's Balaam. It says my Bible heading says Balaam's final oracle, even though then it cuts in and he gives a couple more. But towards the end of this is a Numbers, looks like 24. I scroll top. Numbers 24. Listener, I'm guilty. I'm using digital Bible tonight. Usually I'm using my old man flip Bible, but I'm using a digital Bible tonight. But in this, he says, he's talking about himself. He says, who sees the visions of the Almighty. This is 24:16, falling down with his eyes uncovered. I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob. Mm-hmm. A scepter shall rise out of Israel. It shall crush the forehead of Moab and break down all the sons of Sheth. Edom shall be dispossessed. Seir also, his enemies, shall be dispossessed. Israel is doing valiantly, and one from Jacob shall exercise dominion and destroy the survivor of cities. Now, could I be reading a messianic tone into Balaam's oracle? Yeah, I could be. But I think what sells it for me, like when I read this, and I think sometimes we do this. We're like, oh, it points to Jesus, and a lot of it does, and most of it does. Like the stuff about Edom, I mean, yeah, there's some things, but for me, when he starts talking about a star rising out of Jacob, a scepter's coming, like there's this king. We're looking for a king, and he's coming out of Israel, and this dude's going to crush Moab. I mean, when you give that oracle to the king of like, You're not the good guy. You know what I'm saying? And all I can hear is God telling the snake, like, you and the offspring of the woman are going to have enmity. You're going to bruise. He's going to crush your head, and you're going to bruise his heel. That crushing of Moab, that crushing the head, the language is so similar. And again, this could be me like trying to read a Jesus thing into this story. And maybe it is. But I do find it interesting that Balaam, if this is even just a 10, let's say he got 10% of a flavor of a messianic prophecy. The fact that he is the one that's giving it is wild.
Yeah.
Like, even this crooked mage out in the desert can't not see down the line that there's going to be a king that's going to deal with some amount of evil that's out there. Mm-hmm. And he has to say it. He's just too principled of a prophet to not to. Anyway, I'm rambling, I feel like, but it's like,
yeah,
right here.
I see it there with you. I haven't done a lot of research on this, but from the little bit I have, my thought is that he is addressing both Davidic stuff and Messianic stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a dual layer where he'll say, like, I see him, but not here and now. I think that's David. I perceive him, but far in the distant future, I think that's the Messiah. So I think he's layering this, like, this kingdom will come, this Davidic kingdom will come. People will think it's the thing. It's not. But there is this thing coming after it that is. It is scepter that's coming. And I think he's layering it in that way.
And what I also think is very interesting is by the end of the Torah, like, Balaam's oracle's pretty fuzzy. Like, we've got to do some interpretational gymnastics to be like, I can kind of see Jesus peeking through here. The clarity with which God lays out this messianic idea by the end of Numbers and Deuteronomy is like, get your good stuff from the source, guys. That's for me, that's one of the, don't play around with what is truly subservient to God. Like, even Balaam in playing with Hoodoo Mama Voodoo over here, he cannot. We see this play out with the evil spirits in the New Testament of, like, they can't ignore what God is telling them to do.
Yeah.
The story of Job, whether or not the intro to Job is, we're going to solve that puzzle right now. But, dude, this has been good. I liked this. Balaam. It's one of those stories, like you said, it's a Sunday school story. With a twist. My Sunday school left out Numbers 31.
There's a lot of stuff in Numbers 31 that gets left out.
Yeah, they didn't cover that part.
No.
I will also, real quick, I if you have more on Balaam, I would love to hear it. I also wanted to share, as you were reading, I got to thinking, like, man, he's doing a lot of quoting of stuff that happened in the past. Does Balaam ever come up? And he pops up a couple times. And I just want to touch on these. The first is in Micah 6, which is, I was like, well, let's go. Because Micah 6:8, Micah 6:8 is like let's get a tattoo verse. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But for lack of a better way of saying it. But Micah, I lost it. No. Micah
I can tell you.
6:5. He says, "O my people, remember what Balak, king of Moab, devised, and what Balaam, the son of Beor, answered him, and what happened from Shittim to Gilgal, that you may know the righteous acts of the Lord." And then it goes into the like I've come before and bow myself before God on high, and it goes into like, what does God require of you? But he calls out specifically this moment in Numbers to the people of Israel as like hey, you guys need to get your priorities sorted. Mm-hmm. You need to return to what God desires. Like, you are in left field. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. And he also has a couple New Testament features. Mm-hmm. First is 2 Peter It says, and this is Peter talking about, I believe, false teachers. I'd have to go get more context, but they have eyes full of adultery, insatiable. Yeah, they entice unsteady souls. They have hearts trained in greed. This is 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 14 through probably 16. Forsaking the right way, they've gone astray. They have followed the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who loved gain from wrongdoing, but was rebuked. A speechless donkey spoke with a human voice and restrained the prophet's madness. Just like Peter levying Balaam and, these false teachers, it wasn't a slap on the wrist that Balaam received. We read what happened to Balaam.
Yeah.
And then in Jude, which Jude's a kind of a mixed bag as it is, but Jude, speaking to people that rely on their dreams, defile the flesh, reject authority, and blaspheme the glorious ones, he says, woe to them, this is Jude 11, for they walked in the way of Cain, abandoned themselves for the sake of gain to Balaam's error, and perished in Korah's rebellion. He drags Cain, Balaam, and the sinkhole of Korah kicking and screaming in to say, hey guys, things don't turn out well for the people that are actively trying to lead God's people astray for their own gain. And so I think now would be a good time for us to talk about megachurch pastors, Jesse. No, I'm just kidding. We can cut that.
We can do God and Sinners. We can do that topic.
We can do God and Sinners Modern Era Edition. No.
Yeah.
We can cut that or not. But, it's worth going back and reading the story of Balaam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's also mentioned in Revelation. I think he's to the church of Pergamum, chapter 2, verse 14. He, man, it's rough. The stuff that John talks about to Pergamum about
it's rough.
The doctrines of Balaam is the phrase, and it all ties back to the number story of Balaam, like you said, of how he did all the right things, it seems, right? And then we find out, oh, those weren't the right things. That was magic. And then we find out that in the failure, he still found a way around it for God to curse his people. It's crafty, but it got him cursed. It got him killed. And so it's talking about the doctrine of Balaam.
Yeah,
these false teachers leading people astray into this, worshiping Baal and that type of idea.
Yeah. Yeah, if I won't read it, but it's Revelation 2, and the portion to the church of Pergamum is 12 through, looks like 17. So, yeah, I was peeking at that in there. A few things against you. You've some who hold to the teaching of Balaam. That's interesting. Huh. Seems like these early church letters, it sorted some things out, but there were still some folks running around doing some silly stuff out there.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of fighting against Gnosticism specifically, and there's also what is it?
You want to know more about Gnosticism?
Oh,
go check out our 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John series probably next week on the show. And Jesse, you recently shared about Gnosticism.
I did, yeah.
And I enjoyed it because it was a good refresher. Because sometimes I hear the word and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember hearing about that. But to have you lay out, this is what this thing is, and this is why it doesn't work.
It's fascinating. When I was doing research on that lesson, I knew Gnosticism hadn't gone extinct. I knew it was still around. It's still being practiced by people. What surprised me is that it's growing. There are a lot of people encouraging the doctrines of Gnosticism, to the point where a lot of people will go, wow, that makes so much sense to me. I want to learn more about this. And it's a surprising thing to me because it's not something that has really had to be addressed in the modern era since it got banned at one of those ecumenical church councils. But that surprised me. I knew it was still around. I just didn't know that it was growing.
Yeah. And might be stretching it a bit, but I think there's even some Gnostic thought that trickles into like what we've been talking about with LDS stuff.
Oh yeah,
I really do. Yeah.
Secret knowledge.
We'll talk about that one day.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be good. Well, Jesse, do you have anything else on Balaam before we kind of move to close? I want to, make sure that we cover what you had, because that was good. I feel like I got both a refresher and a kind of a new perspective that I think sometimes have missed.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's way too much to cover in this little episode, but I think this is a good stopping point. It may be another time we can. I don't know. Yeah. Balaam is a fascinating character. The genre the way it's all written of his specific story is explicitly satire. There's just a lot going on in there. Yeah. Well, I guess it's not explicit because it feels real, like a real just account, and then you figure out that it's funny. But anyhow, it's very clever. There's a lot in there.
I think one of the things that happens is sometimes when we approach the Bible, and I think this is a good thing, but a lot of times we approach the Bible and, I'm going to read my Bible. And there's some silly stuff. Like, there's some things that are just downright silly that happen. Like the fact that, I was talking to the kids at Awana, and it's Jacob wrestling with God, and God's like, hip thrust, boink, pops his hip out of socket. And it's like, you can do in gymnastics of like, the God who, and it's like, he cheated the cheater. Like, he got him good, and he was maimed the rest of his life. Like, it's funny because like when he goes down to Egypt, there's some hobbling involved. He's kind of doesn't seem to move very well towards the end of his life. It's fascinating, and it's just one of those where it's like, you want sometimes when you come to Scripture, it's like we got to take this serious. It's the Bible, and rightfully so. Like, it is the Word of God, but that Word of God has humor. It has satire. It has some underhanded comments at times. It's got some gems, and I think sometimes when we button ourselves up a little bit and say, okay, we can miss those things. Like we can miss, like you've pointed out, and like I have missed often, the funny that Balaam, the guy who sees so clearly, has got an angel that's getting ready to just blast him, and it takes a donkey to get him to chill. Yeah. As he's like beating the donkey down the road, he's like, "Come on," and the donkey's like, "I'm gonna break your leg on this wall if you like stop. I'm trying to save you, dummy." It's good. Like it's just good. I would argue it's just very good writing.
It's very, very fun. I love narrative design. I read books on it. I'm a nerd. I know, but I read just books about literary design so that it can help me read the Bible better. Yeah. And this story was so fun for me to look at because there's so many just elements of some underhanded humor, some shade being thrown. It's very fun. It's just rich stuff. The Bible is very rich.
It is indeed. Sorry, we're going to close. I just know, okay, going through this Genesis, and they brought it back up, I wrote this down, like where he talks about them coming out of Egypt. Mm-hmm. I forgot, and by forgot, I think I read it 40 times or more, and just went, phew, that God tells Abram, before he's even Abraham, hey, you're going to be slaves in Egypt. Yeah. Like almost immediately out of the gate, he's like, y'all are going into slavery in Egypt. You're going to be sojourners. Mm-hmm. And just the weight of, as that plays out, and then Jacob is now, his grandpa had that happen, and he has to stare down going to Egypt for food. I'm like, oh, this is why it takes him forever, and he sends his kids 3 times before he can muster up the courage to go. Like, I get it, and I've just, so many times. And all that to say, listener, the Bible is a rich vein, and I'm convinced that with the right approach and attitude, we will never plumb the depths.
There's a saying I've heard for what you just described by a guy. His name is Rabbi David Foreman, he calls that experience you described the lullaby effect, where you hear the nursery rhymes so often, and you think of them as this thing that helps lull you to sleep. But if you look at the lyrics, they're tragic stories of babies in cradles and treetops. I can't. That's a tongue twister. I can't even say it.
Yeah.
Falling out of trees and stuff. Not great songs.
Yeah. Right.
But just the effect of it being read over and over and over again. There's things we are, I guess, conditioned to just forget.
Well, and I don't even know if I forget it. I think sometimes as a Christian, I have this belief that while, yes, there are some atrocities that happen along the way, and I don't celebrate those, like that, they're awful. I'm not going to like downplay that. It seems to have this gaze that is maybe just one book down. And maybe just one book down. And it's like looking for the thing that's going to be the payoff.
Oh.
And then it's like, you're like, oh, well, I didn't get it there. Keep reading. And then when you arrive at Jesus, it's like, okay, Jesus truly, I feel, and this is my shameless plug for the Old Testament. To me, Jesus makes the Old Testament vibrant. That's all I have to say about it. When I read it, I'm like, this is weird. But somehow it's a piece in God's plan that culminates in the person of Christ. Like Ezekiel's chilling out, just trying to have lunch, and here comes the world's most monster of the week, hoogity boogity angel out of the sky. What do we do now? And all those things are part of God's word and point us to a plan that God has for his people and ultimately, I think, for all people. But listener, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining us for another God and Sinners. I hope you're enjoying this. Feel free to shoot us an email or a comment or however people do that. And some of these have comments now, so leave us a comment. You can email us. There's a contact at Parable Ministries, or I think Jesse or Hunter at Parable Ministries. You can get a hold of us via those things. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. But thanks for listening, and we will catch you guys next time. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Pickled Parables. If you enjoyed this message, please rate us, subscribe, and share with your friends. If you're interested in more things like this, check out our secondary podcast called My Dusty Bible. To stay up to date with all things Parable, follow us on Instagram at Parable_Ministries and visit our website at parableministries.com. Parable is a volunteer organization, and we would deeply appreciate your prayers. Thank you for joining us today. We'll catch you later.